how an artist works, what happened when I was conceiving this work, what kind of a joy and tension and pain which I went through while doing this work, that I would like to share because that's a special thing, and uh, there is one poem here in this cabinet here, and it's in the Gujarati language. That's my mother tongue. I come from Bombay, and the city of Bombay, where I was born, brought up, studied, and I still live there, which I consider a major influence on my uh, artistic practice. I feel that the city of Bombay, which gives you lots of joy and lots of pain simultaneously. There is all kind of things, one uh, sees and one kind of, experiences. As soon as you come out of your home, one is bombarded by diverse things, all kind of images, sound, noise, smells, everything. And I think that has also sort of played a role in my way of looking life and art. All I kind of, and I juxtapose totally unrelated things sometimes. And what happens, when they come together, what kind of a meaning will it generate? That's something, which I'm interested. And sometimes it happens that I know, say, two images, two objects or two sculptures, which I am familiar and which are already established and quite known in its own way. There's a history of it, etc. But when they come together, they still retain, of course, you recognize there's a Picasso or IYY or Kitano filmmaker, all this, and still kind of, when they come together in this kind of a large group, what happens? That is something which I'm interested and which I would not say that I have found it, but I think that matters to me. So I thought that since this poem, when I read, actually to put this poem here in this particular cabinet is also for a reason that when, let me go back a little bit, that I was invited specially to create this work for this museum and will be premiered. I was told that at the APT7, and they said this is the 20th year. It's an important year. So there is a history, of course, and all other shows which they did. Since I use lots of art references, quotations, appropriation in my work, not just Indian art, but also from Europe and North America, it was a good idea for if I have been given all this material, how will it sort of, what kind of thing will emerge? And we came to this kind of cabinets, and I thought of 9 cabinets because that's sufficient for one wall, and I didn't want to create a kind of a room where you have many cabinets. That would be a different kind of a thing. And so I was going through basically all the material which I was given. I also took an opportunity to come here in the month of March, where the Matisse drawing show was on here, which I wanted to see. So I chose that particular time. Of course, those are the last days for the Matisse show. But I saw that show and I discussed few things. I had not seen this gallery before, so it's a lovely space. And then everything came in my studio in terms of catalogs, images, etc. Initially, it was very tough to relate with those so many images and so much work, precise, profound work done by other people. I must tell you frankly that, since I went to JJ School of Art in Bombay, and our education system, which is very much a British academic way of teaching painting, so I'm familiar completely with European history, European early period, medieval period, early 20th century, etc. But not necessarily, I'm familiar with, say, Japanese ukiyo-e print, or early Chinese calligraphy, or even the indigenous art from this region. But not necessarily that, many contemporary artists. Few, of course, because, I see them in various biennales, triennales, while traveling, but not necessarily, completely familiar. Anyway, so while looking at one of the images of an artist called Chinese artist called Song Dong, who had this, probably maybe a video work or thing, but there was a still in the catalog where the artist or a person is hitting something into the water. That the image I saw, and I said, oh, and it immediately reminded me, what happens, I think when we see something, uh, we, uh, we are reminded of something. Now, generally that happens to all of us. In my case, what I do, as soon as I'm reminded of something, I just grab it and I try to sort of play with it. So when I saw this particular image of man hitting something into the water, I thought of a Gujarati poet, one of the most important poets, and called Sitanshu Yashash Chandra, and the poet is called, I just read two lines in Gujarati. It says, "Paણીમાં ઘણ પછાડું છું અને વાગી ઉઠે છે ઝાલરો હવેલીની." Okay, what it means, I just read it. I hit a hammer head on in water. I hit a hammer head on in water, and the frills of bells of the Haveli begin to ring. Haveli is like large mansion. There is one mansion. The search for it takes one to faraway places across the city. By evening, the sun drowns itself dead. During the barbed night, what sorts of intricate, star-studded paths will it travel on and arrive at the boundary of a daybreak cannot be foretold. The wings of flames grow pretty long, and I fly away right into the zenith of the sandalwood sky. Like an intoxicated elephant, I collide with the blue crystal air. That which opens out is also a door. In the mansion, on the other side of this door, the frill of bells of the Haveli begin to ring. That was the poem. So I like the poet, I like the poem, and I said, let me just put it together. I know that, how people here will relate, but I think, we don't have to sort of, everything should not be in terms of, understanding. I think it's more about the feeling. We see and we feel and we like it and we respond. I think that is something very important for me as an artist, and that's how I work. So extremely instinctive way, I have chosen images, not necessarily all iconic or big names, but some probably not that big name as well. But like say, for example, when we were displaying this thing in last 3 days, I have been seeing my work here, sometimes alone, sometimes people around. And one thing I felt that, I have conceived as if, that's the cabinet 1 and that's the cabinet 9. And I would prefer people if they kind of see from this side. And so the very first image which you see on the top by a surrealist poet, André Breton, the French master, and who wrote the manifesto of surrealism. But he is kind of looking through glasses, and there are big eyes wide open, and he's seeing something, But while putting, so that's how I started, and it ends with one pot by a Chinese artist, Ai Weiwei, and there is a one eye inside as well. So between the two bright eyes, in the middle, I noticed that there is exactly in the middle is the donkey. It's a film by a New Zealand artist from New Zealand, a filmmaker. It was a musical. So I had to I went through all that. But what I was saying is this: I thought that instead of, if I would have put Breton over there, if he would have, if I would have larger image of Gandhi and Breton at the place of Gandhi and Gandhi at the place of Breton, because since he's getting down from the train, and that's the age of the cabinet, probably it would have been, interesting. But on a second thought, I thought, no, I think the way what has happened is better. It's okay, this is fine. The only odd man out here in this whole thing, and the rest of the things are like, of course, this big photograph I took here in the museum. This I took in the Queensland Art Gallery. The Korean artists, when the Matisse drawing was on, they had beautiful, model sitting with the drapery, with Matisse kind of background, and people were drawing. All this thing has certain definite meaning, but only the Gandhi which is something, a man who is not sort of, was not seen here I mean, in the museum or in the artworks. So I thought that, and since Gandhi keeps coming in my work, and his philosophy of nonviolence, his philosophy of love for fellow human being, all these things so much matter today, not just in India, but everywhere. So I thought that Gandhi, I must have it somehow. And of course, in my earlier work called An Artist of Nonviolence, where I see Gandhi as the first conceptual artist, but of course, that's another story. So I had Gandhi in the picture, and then it's more a sort of a playful sort of placement of various objects, paintings, drawings, and I won't be going in detail of each and everything, but like for example, you see here one drawing here. Now this has to do, in my mind, I did it, it's a drawing, it's a copy of a drawing in my way. It's a watercolor and pencil drawing of the poet Rabindranath Tagore, Bengali poet, a Nobel laureate from India, and he was also a painter. He started painting much later in his life. So there is one drawing which I took from his one of the reproductions, and I painted. This has to do with the Sri Lankan artist called Jagat Verusenge, who had an Anoli Pereira. They had this big project in India called Artists from India as well as from Sri Lanka, saying that 1 year of drawings. So every artist probably did drawings for 1 year, and then there was a big show of that. I was not a part of that thing, but I said if I would have been part of it, this is my contribution to that. So that's how I was remembering. And of course, those drawings were shown here, probably in last APT. So that's how sort of, I kind of did the thing, because one thing, of course, I am not a theorist, neither a critic, neither a curator, but being an artist, I said, how shall I do that? And I didn't want any strong discourse and too much into kind of a theory part and logic and all that. I said it has to be playful, and it should be also how will I engage my viewer. That's extremely important point for me. I feel that I always worked with having viewer in mind. Of course, when I'm painting, when I'm doing, I do what I want to do. But as soon as the work is done, I need someone to see it. I call my mother, I call my family people, and even the people who work at the studio. We all sit together, we discuss, and then it goes out. What is the point of showing? It's a sharing, basically. One shares, and there's so much joy that when I look at art, of anyone's art, or any kind of art, it just kind of, it gives me immense joy. And I think that's the reason. So I think, for me, I cannot work in isolation. I cannot work in void. It is people whom we share, we show, and kind of how we all, and that's how I think I often it has influenced me, the way of seeing, not just mine, but also by people's way of seeing. And you can't escape living in a country like India, when you are surrounded by so many people, and it's the excess is the right word for myself as well as for India. And you see so much here, I feel like, I wish I had probably, full this room, then I could have, many more cabinets and many more things. There's always this, excitement about doing things in various ways, but there is the element of excess. At one point, I also thought, because it's very strange, right? I must tell you that some of the great masters of the early 20th century, like Mondrian or Malevich, Russian supremacist artist, and much later the American minimalist painters, whom I admire a lot. It's strange that I have to have lots of narrative, lots of stories, and like literature and cinema is my passion. I love it, and but still at the same time I enjoy the art which is very simple. So when the cabinets were empty, I was thinking, well, why should I have, how shall I go and how shall I do it? Should I have very, very little sparse thing and make it more quiet thing? But every time I start that way, all my other paintings, whether my roller shutters or other cabinets, but it never happens that way. Ultimately, it's all kind of lots of things together in juxtaposing each other, and that's how kind of it happens. But well, the Man Ray image, of a catalog, which I came in 2004 here, and that time the Man Ray show was on at the Queensland Art Gallery, and it's 17th May 2004. I bought the catalog at the Queensland Art Gallery. So I just opened that page and we took a photograph. I placed it here. And then, once I get that, then what will go around it, how it will kind of, placed. So there were lots of play around to begin with, because the studio, if 3 months back, my studio was just full of Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, the all Asia Pacific Triennials, catalogs, and not only that, but lots of prints which I took, photographic print, photocopies, and it was all lying around. And then the piles of all these things were there. And how to get something more rhythmic, more precise and proper in terms of form, in terms of color, that is something quite ultimately, it matters, because it's not something which is, there are this random, or are this really has any meaning when they are coming together. It is not something which is which I can actually precisely say. But like, for example, I was very clear that I wanted this blurred spoon. It's a still from video from one of the artists from here, and the image of Chinese artist Ai Weiwei throwing the ancient vase, and I think that work was also shown here. I have put my finger on top of it and we took a picture, and you see a black mark on my finger, and that means in India, when great democracy India is, and when you go for vote, when the vote has been given, and put a finger on whatever party you choose, they put this black mark on your finger, and it means it's a very positive sign. It's almost like I vote for you. It's that is the thing. But of course, Ai Weiwei himself has worked with the finger in a very different way. But so mine it's definitely more positive one, probably. Anyway, so that's the way. And when when I said another problem was that what should I call this work? I said, title was very tough. Ruben was asking me, writing to me for a catalog that, now the deadline is so close and please give. And I was not. Sometimes the title comes like that. Sometimes even I start work with a title. A word, single one word can, trigger a series of paintings sometimes. It has happened with me. And this time it was tough. So then finally, in this poem, there's this word, sandalwood sky, and the fragrance of sandalwood. It's also very pure and auspicious in India. And I was kind of, jumping from first AP to the sixth, the last 20 years, and the other images which I had from here to there, and getting things from there and rejecting few things, again coming back. It was very much like a somersault, and I would start with one point, go somewhere else, various directions, all that. And I thought that this sounds interesting. It's a bit long, but should I have it? Then there was another title which came to my mind called Just the River. And I was also looking through the Google map and other thing, the city of Brisbane, and I found this beautiful, very serpentine-like shape, like a river, which runs through the Brisbane River, and which, if you see the cabinet too, there is this blue band which runs through, which is the actual shape of the river, which when you see it from the top, from the aerial view. So I thought, what if I just call it the river? So I was happy with that as well. Then, because had at one point, initially, like I become, when this project came, I was too serious about how to go about, and various artists try to understand them, the first APT and the approach of first APT, and then how it changed in a course of time in last 20 years. Should I study all that? And then I said, no, Atul, don't do this. Do one thing. As if, I am walking around the river band, and on the way, you find beautiful pebbles, corn, shells, and you just see them, you like them, you love them, you keep it in your pocket, you take home. So I think it was, for me, it was like that. I found beautiful gems on this journey, and that's how I sort of kind of included them in my work. So I said the river is a beautiful title. So then but it's simple title, which is also good. And so I was in a dilemma. Then I asked my wife, who's also an artist, she's here. And I said, what do you think? So she said, no, 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 there is no way the river. It has to be this one, somersault in sandalwood sky. Then I said, okay. And that's how